Yo, what's up? This is Doc Wynter from iHeartMedia. Check me out on the Bootleg Kev Show.
That's not the plan. All right, man. Bootleg Kev podcast. Special guest in here. Mr. Doc Wynter is here.
What's up?
So, Doc, for people who don't know,
Yeah,
what's your title?
I'm the president of Hip Hop and R&B Programming Strategy for iHeart and program director of Real 92.3, as you know.
Real 92.3.
Yeah.
Click up on the mic a little bit, Doc.
Oh, on the mic?
A little bit on the mic.
We got to start over, or we good?
No, you're good. You're good.
right, cool.
So, big title.
Yep.
You've made plenty of like the Source Power 30 list, and you're a very, very important guy in the music industry. I got to thank you because you've given me opportunity after opportunity.
Yep. When we launched Real, I got a bunch of audition tapes.
Yeah.
To this day, yours was still the best.
Yeah, that was like late 2014. I might have sent that. I was in Tampa.
Yeah. 2015.
And Whack 100 called me at a dinner with you and was like, I'm with Doc Wynter right now. I'm telling him about you. I was like, what'd you say?
Did you do like a video drop?
Yeah. And so at that point in time, I called a bunch of rappers and I was like, I need you guys all to do a drop that says bring Bootleg Kev to LA.
Yeah, no, it was good, man. It was
And it
very,
worked,
very good.
but
Yeah.
I was under contract. But it ended up working out anyway. So
That's some real shit, though, when you think your man's going to let you out your contract.
I know when I asked, I tried to do it the right way. I was like, guys, it's my dream job, please. And I think it all worked out,
It did.
for the best.
Timing was right. Yeah.
For sure. For like, you would originally went to school for computers, right?
Computer programming.
What city are you originally from, Doc?
Originally from Brooklyn.
So you're a New York guy.
And then, Queens, played ball, went to college in Connecticut, was a computer programmer. My homie worked at the college radio station. I used to sit in with him sometimes. And then one spring break, he asked me to fill in for him. And
you caught the bug?
the assumption was always that you're from New York, so you can mix.
Right.
I was a Catholic school basketball player, but I always fuck with the radio. Loved radio. Loved Frankie Crocker, BLS, all that New York shit.
Yeah.
And so when I sat in for that day, I prepped my show. I cracked the mic, and I don't know if you had that experience, but when I cracked that mic the first time, I was like, "Wow,
Yeah.
this is crazy." And it was a college radio station that was one of those towns where the commercial station was on during the daytime, but the college station was on at night. So some people did both. And this chick named Jackie Allen, never forget her. Her brother worked actually at Kiss FM in New York at the time. She was like, "Yo, like I don't know who you are, but you should do this." So
you went from the college did you finish getting your degree?
yeah, I started working as a computer programmer and worked at the college station at the same time, and then I got a job at a commercial station.
What was your first commercial gig?
It was New 98 FM in Willimantic, Connecticut.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
What market number is that?
Dude, I have no idea. All I know is I was a computer programmer, so I was making a little money, and so I think I started out part-time, then I went to full-time, and it was tight then, man. So I remember one day going in with my my dinner before I was about to go on air, put my Big Mac down, went to the bathroom to wash my hands, came back, somebody had taken a bite out of my shit. Yeah, because
Jesus.
it was tight. It was
like
tight
that.
like that. It was tight like
What were
that.
you? Do you remember what you were making an hour?
I think I was making 20 something as a computer programmer. So
Right.
I'm
Great
making,
money back
I'm
then.
making more than the program director at the radio station, which was an issue.
Of course.
It's actually an interesting story. Like he basically hired me to fill in overnights a weekend that he was going to be gone. Back then, it was you had to have somebody in the building.
Right. At all times.
And I'm thinking I'm auditioning. He's in another part of the country, but his wife was listening. And she was like, "Yo, like you need to hire this dude." She ended up telling me the story like a couple years later. She was like,
Crazy.
"Yo, he wasn't even listening to you." And I told him like, "Yo, you need to hire that dude." So, but it might have been $5 an hour at the time.
So you go from doing that. What would you say was your first like significant break that made you kind of be like, I can leave the programming job aside and really pursue the radio thing?
So from New 98 in Willimantic, I went to WNHC in New Haven, which was like a AM a 24-hour radio station, and I was doing overnights there. I was working for Jazzy Jordan. I was doing part-time, and my boy Bobby was doing mornings. He was going on vacation, and she asked me to fill in. I was actually getting ready to go on vacation, one of those things that radio people do, and she, sometimes it takes a minute for the things to kick in.
Right.
And I was like, I need to cancel this vacation and do mornings. So
I've done that before.
I canceled my vacation. I did mornings for a week, and then at the end of the week, Friday, she called me in the office, and she was like, "Yo, how would you like to do it full time?" And I was like, "Yo, Bobby's my guy. That's my homie."
Yeah.
She's like, "Yeah, that's business. You want it or not?" And I was like, "Wow, seriously?" And I was able to talk to him before things went down, let him know, like,
give him the heads up.
no malice. And later on, once I got this position, I was able to give him an opportunity. But so I started doing mornings there, worked there for a while. Then I wanted to see what it was going to be like to work at Top 40 Radio, because, it was a different thing.
Yeah.
Black radio locally versus Top 40 radio. So I went and I did Top 40 for about a year. That's how I got into the company. I was the black guy in a Top 40 station. What shift was I doing?
Nice.
Overnights.
Okay.
Overnights, and having the white girls roll up on you at the promotions like mad when they find out that you're black. It was actually pretty hilarious. So that's when I end up making the trend. I got to let go. My parents are Jamaican.
That was for Clearwater or Clear Channel. Jesus.
At the time, it was J-Core.
Okay.
It was actually Noble Broadcast Group, and then J-Core bought us. Then we later on became Clear Channel. But my parents were lit, man. They were like, "Yo, we went to school to be a computer programmer." Like, what are you doing?
They weren't too happy.
Oh, not at all. Like, Jamaicans, like, we don't do, like, we're like everybody in my family. I got doctors, lawyers, judges. Like, our family, like, they had a plan. We came over here. You get educated, you get a job. And so that was contrary to the plan. But I told my pops, like, "Yo, Dad, I think I can be really good at this."
Yeah.
And once I got this job, 10 years later, he was good. He was good. He was good with it after that. But initially, he was a little tight about it. Yeah.
You've been a part of, like, obviously some pretty historical stuff in radio. You pretty much, you signed on Real 92.3 in LA, which was a very crazy thing to do at the time, because there is a heritage station here that nobody would ever really think to fuck with.
Yep.
Also, you were very instrumental in the Breakfast Club, right?
I launched Power 105.1.
So you launched Power 105.1.
Yeah.
At the time when you launched it, it was Ed Lover in the morning?
Yep, Ed and Dr. Dre, the other Dr. Dre.
Yep, the other one.
And then we went through a couple of iterations of morning shows. I think Tigger was doing mornings at one time. Then we had, I think before that, it might have been Star and Buck Wild.
Yeah, how was that? What were those calls like?
I tell everybody all the time, man, like he and I had a great relationship, man. There was never any malice between us. He gave people a hard time, but like me and him were good, man.
Yeah.
Like I remember he and I having a conversation one time about how many times he was used the N-word on his show, because at this time he was doing it like every 2 seconds.
Did you say like, "Hey, you got 5 a show"?
No, I vaguely remember the conversation, but I remember him negotiating it down to 25.
25 times a show?
25 times an hour a show. It was
Which is kind of crazy because technically you can say it on the radio.
Yeah.
Technically you can.
But it wasn't an advertiser-friendly term
for
to use,
sure,
that you might imagine. And so I remember,
it's bad for business to use that. Yeah.
I remember he and I settled on that, and then it progressively went back up to 40, and then then those things ended crazy. I don't ever want to take credit for the Breakfast Club hire, because it was actually Cadillac Jack. I remember him calling me and telling me I knew who Charlamagne was, I knew who Envy was because of what happened with Star. And I was aware who Angela was. And at the time the show started, it was the very beginning of PPM measurement.
Early PPM,
Early PPM measurement. There were a lot of misconceptions about PPM measurement. And the biggest one was that you should know if a show is a hit within weeks.
Also, for people who don't know what PPM is, it's a meter that tells radio stations their ratings.
Exactly.
It's an imperfect system.
And before that, it used to be a diary. So you would get a diary and you would write down what you thought you listened to versus
what you actually listened to. Much easier way to program.
Yeah, absolutely. Much easier way. So so the show started, remember Cadillac and I talking about it. I thought it was a great idea, but it didn't hit as quickly as people thought. And we had done something similar in Chicago with a morning show, and I remember that morning show took a minute. So after a few months when it didn't hit, I was called in for a meeting in New York, and there was actually a thought of maybe doing something different. And I remember...
After a few months?
After a few months, yeah,
okay.
Because that was the misconception at the time. But there was a chemistry between the three that was like nothing I'd ever seen.
Right.
And I remember being in a room with them, just kind of like, we just talking and just like, man, like if this gets on the radio and we give it time and we promote it, it's gonna be crazy. I had no idea it would be what it became, but yeah,
I know you fielded calls for stuff I've said before. At least I know Ayo has about artists. Have you ever had to deal with blowback for like early Charlamagne stuff where they're like, "Yo," and I know before Real, you're obviously based in Jacksonville, but like I feel like you're kind of the face of like who the industry talks to when it comes to iHeart shit on the hip hop side. You are that literally. So was there ever any like?
Always. Especially at the very early, different iterations of Charlamagne.
Yeah.
I think early on he was raw.
Raw.
And so I get those complaints. Obviously, back in the day before Charlamagne's Star, it was routine, man. Like NAACP would want me to come. I'm like, I'm not coming in for the meetings. Like, nah, man. Like if you took the show locally, I would always tell them, like, you took the show, you know what you got, like, you got to handle it. Like, I'm not flying across the country and meeting with the, United Negro College Fund, NAACP, every city because of
every city that was affiliated
with the show because they were hot, But yeah, I mean, there were complaints. I mean, it's part of the culture.
I'm just wondering if like you look at your phone and like it says Diddy's calling, right, and then Diddy's like, Yo, Doc, what's this is fucking. By the way, that's just the name.
I mean, it still happens to this day. Yeah, I mean, I think some people think that that's what we do. We set them up for the, to get the clip on social media, which I don't think you guys intentionally do. I think it just happens sometimes. But yeah, I get them a lot.
Do you feel like? Because I don't think artists, at least even 5-10 years back, appreciate the radio promo run like they used to. You know what I mean? Like I feel like a lot of these younger guys didn't necessarily break on radio and or understand the importance of radio. Or do you notice that in terms of like certain artists maybe not wanting to do, come to the station or do a radio run or do like a promo show or shit like that?
Not a lot, but some.
Yeah.
Again, just not well educated. I think they've fallen into the fantasy of streaming, which, I don't necessarily buy it all, that it's legitimate. I think if you want to be a household name, though, you want to be on the radio.
Yeah.
That's.
I always tell everybody, I say, look, you have a career, you could be big, but if you want a #1 record, if you want to be a superstar,
got to be on the radio.
Radio, it has to be.
Especially markets like LA where people are always in the car.
Right.
Like, and people always talk about, radio's ability to survive, man. Like the best talent in the world is on the radio. Like, you could put on a playlist, but I'd rather hear you and James talk about something and then play my favorite record, or you and Big, or Breakfast Club, or we just have a lot of great talent in our stable, and I think they're going to take us into the next.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
In terms of like, obviously, radio as an industry is like shrinking in terms of like the amount of bodies that are around. Like even like on the record side, people are getting let go. It feels like more and more if you think of like the UK and they have BBC. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like eventually there'll be like I don't think there'll ever be like a BBC type situation in the US. I just think there's too many companies involved. Yeah. But do you feel like eventually there'll be something similar where it's like, this is the morning show for the US. This is you know what I mean? Like, do you feel like it's gonna get there or no?
I don't think so because I think big makes sense for LA.
Right.
I think
Didn't make sense for New York. He was on Hot 97 for a little bit.
no.
Yeah.
And I probably never told him this story, but I remember my boss calling me and saying, "Hey, should we do this?" And I had met Big, loved him, and I think growing up in New York City, I was like, "No, it's a different vibe." It's
100%. There's cities. There's cities that are like that.
Yeah, like he's one of the funniest, most talented people I've ever met.
For sure.
And I mean that sincerely. But New York is just a different animal.
New Yorkers they want to hear New Yorkers on the radio. They want to know you're there. They want to know,
And you got to have a little, it could be a little nasty at times, and that's their expectation, and they deserve to get what it is that they want, just like you should in Atlanta, you should in D.C.
I was going to say, what are some of those other cities that you're like, this kind of needs?
Yeah, Memphis is different.
Memphis is definitely
New Orleans
different.
is different.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, Duval is different.
Tampa was like that. Yeah. I remember being in Tampa and being like, I can't imagine. Like even the morning show who was on the top 40 station was an iHeart station. What's the top 40 guy who was over there forever?
Oh, Bubba?
No. The iHeart top 40 guy was based in D.C., but he streamed in Tampa. Kane?
Oh, Kane. Yeah.
Yeah.
How can you talk about Tampa radio and not talk about
Bubba the Love Sponge,
man? Yo,
psycho. Shout out to him.
Shout out to him. He actually worked for me for about a month.
What station was it?
When I got to Jacksonville,
okay,
he was on Sunday nights.
Oh, wild guy, wild show,
dude. Like one of my favorite stories to tell about radio involved him. So he was on. When I got to Jacksonville, I was only programming WSOL initially. That's the Urban AC,
right.
And my boy Paco Lopez was programming The Beat. I remember one of our first meetings with our boss at the time was Kevin Matheny. Kevin was Kevin was Howard Stern's boss.
Oh,
if you ever saw the movie WNBC
that guy.
Teaching him how, pig vomit.
Pig vomit.
Yeah, was his name, right? So Kevin was my first boss when I got to Jacksonville. And so Paco and Kevin and I are having our first staff meeting when I get to Jacksonville. And so Paco is complaining about Bubba, following directions, doing whatever. And, that was Bubba. And so I remember we're in the room, and Kevin, God rest his soul, I remember him telling Paco to go get Bubba's phone number, and he threw something at him. Told him, get out and go get his number. And I was like, oh shit.
Right.
So I remember while we're waiting for Paco to come, I was like, man, Kev, dude, did I ever tell you I'm from Brooklyn?
Right.
And he's like, yeah. I was like, yeah, man, because honestly, that pen
don't fly.
It's coming right back at you, right? And I remember he just turned bright red. I said, no, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I was like, I'm just wired differently.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to work for me. I remember him looking at me, turning bright red, and we were good after that. Never, ever, ever. But, it was it was my first time really seeing that kind of management style. And
some old school radio shit.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's not gonna work for me though.
I just heard back in the day, man, I would always guys I wouldn't even say their names, but just I heard way back, probably even rock radio days, you used to be able to get your record on if you dropped off a 8 ball of cocaine. Some of these rock PDs in the 70s,
Yo, man, it was a different environment because when I later became the PD of JBT and SOL, you got to remember SOL is on the urban adult panel, right. And JBT at the time was on the rhythmic panel, not the urban panel.
Yo, what up? It's Bootleg Kev. We got to stop the interview to tell you about our folks at MyBookie. That's right. So many ways you can gamble with MyBookie right now, man. Of course, you got NBA playoffs, Western Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals. They're set. I love Celtics versus Lakers in the finals. All right. You can sign up at mybookie.ag right now using that promo code Bootleg and get a very generous first deposit bonus. That's right. And they just got the craziest revamp of the online casino. It's like a Las Vegas experience. If you play cards, blackjack, roulette, you shoot dice, whatever it is, they have live dealers handling it for you wherever you're at. You could be at the airport and be playing fucking roulette on your phone. It's amazing. MyBookie.ag. Sign up with that promo code Bootleg right now. You can bet on sports. You could do slots. You could do blackjack, craps, whatever you're into. MyBookie.ag. Promo code Bootleg for that first deposit bonus, and it is a generous one. Also got to give a shout out to our family at King Palms. Shout out to King Palm, man. If y'all ain't know about King Palms, they're our new sponsor on the Bootleg Kev podcast, and they got such a great product. The best thing about King Palms is it's all organic, man. No tobacco in these wraps. They're straight leaves. And the best thing about them is they got this product. Their flavor, terpene tips, all right? You stuff them with your product. Do we got one here? Oh, we do got one here. We got one right here. We got one right here, all right? You stuff this with your premium cannabis from Hardy in Las Vegas, all right? You smoke up, pinch that tip, you're going to get a burst of flavor. Yeah, this is the energy drink flavor. We got peach pineapple. We got watermelon wave. Also, don't forget the goddamn blue grapes. You know what I mean? And also, this is a tobacco-free wrap. It's totally organic. It's literally a leaf. Let me show you what I mean. That is just a big-ass leaf, guys. All right? So what you could do is go to kingpalm.com. Weeds flying everywhere. Kingpalm.com. Promo code BOOTLEG. And you can get 50% off of whatever you order at kingpalm.com. And don't forget to check them out because they're everywhere. Your local smoke shop, your local liquor store, 7-Eleven, smoke the King Palm. All right? It's organic. It ain't like all that other bullshit y'all be fucking stuffing in your lungs, man. All right? Shout out to King Palm, kingpalm.com, promo code BOOTLEG right now. And it's actually promo code BOOTLEG Kev. Promo code BOOTLEG Kev. Not bootleg. Bootleg Kev. Kingpalm.com. Half off everything. Let's get back to the interview. It's on the urban panel, of course.
Yes, and JBT is on the rhythmic panel. So I'd come from St. Louis at KMJM, so I knew all the urban people.
Of course.
So now I have this whole slew of people that I don't know, most of whom are white. And
You talking about the record reps?
record
and all that?
reps, yeah. And it's a totally different vibe.
Right.
Like I remember Hitman Hayes, who's in
He's in San Diego.
San Diego now, was my music director at the time. I remember walking to his office one time to ask him, and he's on speaker, and some dude is just like yelling at him, like, "Oh, you bitch ass motherfucker!"
Was it a record rep?
Yeah, and I was like, mute. I was like, yo, who is that? And it was a record guy. Oh. I said, and he's talking to you like that? He said, yeah. I was like, hang up on him. He said, what do you mean? I said, hang up on him.
You got it, yeah?
So I just hung up on him. I was like, man, like, I don't ever want to hear you letting somebody talk to you like that again. I'll fire you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And our relationship was great after that. He still works in the company.
Hayes is great.
But it was just so different to see how, the reps were different. And, it was great for me because I had an opportunity to meet all of those people. And I've had long-standing relationships with people on both sides of the equation. But
even me, like when I got hired at Real, technically, it was the first urban I ever worked at. So I obviously worked at tons of hip-hop stations, but there's hip-hop stations on the rhythm panel.
Yeah.
So coming to Rio, I'm meeting all these record reps. I never had a relationship with a guy like Dwight or, guys like that. And it's like, oh shit, it's like a whole new group of guys.
And we should probably explain the whole idea between rhythmic and urban.
Correct. So for people who don't know, Hot 97 is a hip-hop station, but it's on the rhythm panel.
Yeah.
So there's a rhythmic chart.
Yep.
And there's, I believe, around 60 stations that report to it.
Probably.
Give or take, right?
Yeah.
So Power 106 in LA that we're smoking in the ratings, Hot 97 in New York. Those are hip-hop stations that are on the rhythmic panel.
Got it.
On the urban panel, there's a ton of stations on the urban panel. A lot more stations, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Typically,
but there's a story behind that, too.
Yeah, what is that story?
The story behind that is, let's just keep it real. Rhythmic stations play predominantly black music,
black artists,
hip-hop.
100%.
Most of the jocks are white. Most of the program directors are white.
And then, out of touch and weird and cringy as fuck.
I'm not trying to, I'm trying to just,
no, you're right.
It's just the facts.
Listen.
And so then on the urban panel,
most of the talent's black.
Most of the talent's black.
And most of the programmers are black.
Directors are black. And on the record side, most of those people are people of color. So here I am. I started overseeing the urbans for the company in 2000. And around 2003 was the first time we decided to launch Power in New York, and working with Steve Smith, Tom Pullman, who's still my boss.
That's crazy. Steve Smith helped launch that station?
Yeah.
And he launched Hot 97.
That was my guy.
R.I.P.
God rest his soul, yeah. And so then the conversation comes up, and they're like, okay, so we're going to put it on the rhythmic panel. Like, oh, no. Not me.
Yeah.
I'm the head of urban.
Yeah.
black to New York City. This is my city. I'm not putting a hip hop station on and putting it on the rhythmic panel. And the conversation was literally about 2 seconds. And that's one of the things I loved about Tom to this day.
Great
Steve
guy.
at the time. You're like, you're right. It should be. And so then fast forward 15 years later, we get ready to launch Real.
Same thing.
2-second conversation. Nope, I don't do that. Like,
So they wanted you to run it on the rhythm panel?
yeah.
Oh, wow.
But that's jobs, man. We create jobs when we put an urban on in
No,
New
for
York,
sure.
and Power is still an urban. We created jobs when we put Real on in LA.
Yeah.
Same thing in Houston with the beat. Same thing in Miami with the beat. Same thing. But one of those things I know for me personally was important for me to do, and it was important that our company supported us, because I was like that's crazy. Like why would we do that?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And I always didn't understand this is like kind of getting into some inside baseball, but I never really understood the lack of urbans on the West Coast in general.
Yeah.
Like I think of a station like KMEL, right? KMEL is an urban station, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's on the rhythm panel.
Yeah.
But it's like is that I think that might be the first hip hop station. KMEL.
On the West Coast,
I think it was the first.
it might have been.
I think so.
I'd have to do my.
But it's just, it's some real radio nerd shit. But it's definitely like if you're an artist, right, and like maybe you're, because a lot of up and coming artists watch the podcast, like you got to kind of make a decision if you have a record and you have a budget, which chart you're gonna chase, right?
Yeah,
So it's like I want to go to the rhythmic side, I want to go on the urban side, I want to go on the top 40 side, and then you make a decision from there.
Yeah. It's actually crazy because if you looked at our playlist for Real in LA, we have rhythmic sensibilities.
For sure. There's Bad Bunny getting played.
Absolutely.
Steve Lacy got
Absolutely,
played. For sure.
And it's a function of our audience.
100%.
Our audience here is predominantly Latino with some African American. And you go to Atlanta, it's totally different. You go to LA, go to New York, it's totally different.
Yeah.
And usually the playlist is a function of the diet that audience was fed upon. Where here in LA, the diet was more rhythmic.
Right.
And so as you put a station on here in LA, gradually, like when I launched it, we launched it like it was an urban station, but gradually it's begun to take on.
It's like its own thing.
Yeah, its own thing because of the feedback from the audience.
I was going to say, like, obviously you've been a part of launching Market 1 and 2, we're talking about Power 105.1, Real 92.3, each against the biggest heritage hip hop stations in the country.
Yeah.
What were some of the bumps and bruises for each city? Because obviously it took you a few morning shows to land on the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
It helps if you're in LA and you launch with Big Boy.
Absolutely.
What were some of the bumps and bruises where you kind of had to because again, there's no rules for each city. You got to kind of learn on the fly, I'm sure, for each station that you launch, because you've launched so many.
Power was different in that, I was like 2-3 years into the job, but my team respected me, but I also was the only black person and the only New Yorker that was involved in the equation. So sometimes you just gotta muscle your way in and no, we're gonna do it this way, we're gonna do it that way, because we're all type A personalities. And then once we launched, my mindset was I was gonna bring different people in from different radio stations that I oversaw to put them on the air. Hindsight, that was a mistake.
Okay.
I think it's got to be people from that city.
Yeah.
To make it work, because it's a local,
or at least predominantly.
Predominantly, absolutely.
Right.
It's a local radio station, so it should be people who live and breathe and eat and sound like that city. And I think I made the mistake then, and that's not casting shade on anybody there.
Right.
But I think in the best interest of the radio station, and I think I learned that here in LA, people got to be from here. They got to be able to talk and sound and, and speak the language of the city. Launching with Big was obviously
it's like a cheat code.
A huge advantage for us. We wouldn't have done it if we didn't.
So I think that people don't understand there would not be a Real 92.3 if iHeart hadn't have nabbed Big Boy. It wouldn't have been worth going against him?
No, I didn't think we were going to do it. Honestly, I remember when Tom first reached out and said, "Hey, I think this could be the play." And this was like in 2014. I think I had met Big in maybe 2008 when we were considering syndication with him, and I'd come out to LA. And one of the things I knew about him is he was incredibly loyal,
Super loyal guy, great guy,
incredibly loyal. I'm like, unless they really, really messed up, he's not leaving. And I never forget. It was late December. Might have been the first week or two in January 2015. I'm in New York in a meeting with 50 Cent. Get a text on my phone like, "Yo, we ready to go."
Got it done.
I got to get on the phone. I got to negotiate my new contract with my boss. Did that in like 5 minutes. And then,
Because at that point in time, you're realizing you're moving to LA.
Yeah, had to let my lady know. By the way, think we're gonna be moving to LA. She's like, "Let's go," And I had to excuse myself from that meeting with 50. I'm like, "Yo, I got to get on a plane and go to LA tomorrow. Go find a place to live and get ready to launch a radio station." Then my next call was to Ayo, who I had just made the PD in Miami.
Yeah.
"Hey, I know you really, really like Miami."
Oh, he really likes Miami.
Yeah, it's legendary, right?
Me and him had an all-nighter with Ayo.
Man, don't ever hang out with Ayo. He'll kill you. I was like, "Hey, man, why don't you come with me to LA? Let's do this." And he was like, "Oh, let's go."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my guy, man.
No, it's crazy because, like you said, like it was like a very last. From what I understand, well, first of all, there was like a lawsuit, right, with involving Big leaving, right?
Yeah.
So I remember you telling me like, "Hey, man, we're in the middle of this legal shit with Big Boy. So if you gotta get out of your deal. Yeah. They have to let you out. We can't like."
Yeah, I wasn't.
Because I was like, dude, I could just quit and then pop up in LA. Yeah. You're like, no, not this. He's like, this big shit wasn't happening, maybe, but
and Big wasn't the only one. There were a couple people that I had interviewed who I wanted to bring on the team who were working in television.
Right.
And they were of the mindset, "Oh, yeah, it's a different medium. I can do both."
Right.
And I'd be like, "No, you got to get approval." Yeah. Like, no, they're good. I already spoken to them about it. Nah. And just like you, when they went, hell no. Nah, not doing it. And they were blown away. And I'm like, there's nothing we can do about it. But I know for me moving forward, it was never again. Because in some instances, and I know in one deal in particular, I actually said, "Okay, let's put the deal in front of you, and then you can take it to your boss," as opposed to you getting permission first. And their boss said, "No."
Yeah, I had a meeting with some redneck guy from Beasley and Orlando. Love Orlando, because he was like, I told him yes.
Yeah.
He's like, "But we got to go sit with." I think I forget those Beasleys are from like Augusta, Georgia, or some shit.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, "You're gonna regret this." I gotta say, you're number one right now.
Yeah.
Can't just let you go. We're tired of iHeart poaching our talent.
Yeah.
So it didn't work out. But it's crazy, Doc, because you're in a position where you can really press the button on changing someone's trajectory of their career.
Yeah.
And I know you don't take that lightly. I also know that artists are very emotional. They're very emotional when it comes to their art.
Yeah.
And I've heard you just tell people this ain't it. This is not I remember we had a random, I don't know if Fetty Wap was there, somebody from 300 was there, when Fetty Wap kept just putting up duds. And I remember, shout out to Fetty Wap. He just got sentenced to 6 years in prison. Free Fetty Wap. But I've seen you you're a very blunt guy when it comes to telling people about their records. Like, how hard is it to be like, I know I don't want to spill any names or anything, but you've had situations where artists have gotten really emotional with you.
Yeah. Top
tier, biggest artists in the world.
Yeah.
Pulled out of certain situations for iHeart over just dumb shit. But like for you, how do you I guess tiptoe that line where you could be friendly with somebody, you could look out for somebody, but you're not gonna just your record's getting added on all these iHeart stations just because you're so and so.
It's honestly sad in some respects because it is the nature of our format. There are formats like country where Like they love their people from 18 to 75, and they're going to play the record.
And country artists
And
treat
country
radio
artists,
like royalty.
absolutely. But it's a function of that.
Right.
It just happens not to be true about our format. Our format is 18 to 34 targeted, and when you turn 35, you go someplace, you leave, and then that 17-year-old turns 18, and they come in, and they have specific taste, interest, and sometimes you'll get a legacy artist who's done the damn thing for 25 years, and one day it's over, and you have to tell them, and they don't appreciate it because they feel like, and I get it. I totally get it. It's just the nature, and every once in a while they'll put one in that will work, but it's not. It's the exception, not the rule.
It's the exception.
Not
Everyone's always one hit away.
Yep.
Especially with TikTok. Do you have like a blacklist of artists who've just, it's like, fuck you. Like you've done A, B, and C to me, the bridge is burnt.
First of all,
I'm not saying you're going to tell me who's on the list, but is there a list?
First of all, I don't really have that because I don't put that out. I have really good relationships. I've had 3 really bad experiences.
Really?
3.
That's not bad.
In 35 years, I've had 3.
Wow.
One is an artist who will remain nameless, but he was at that particular part of his career. I was in New York at a party having a conversation and a drink with a very nice young lady, and the label came over and said, hey,
so-and-so's here.
So-and-so wants to say what's up to you. So I get up, I walk over to where they're standing, and I'm immediately taken back because of the stature of the individual. It was really, 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 really short. And I didn't expect, I knew, but I didn't know,
Right.
And, there were some heels that were really, and I was like, wow. And then he just started going in. There was another misconception that there was some national playlist that I presided over it and that his music wasn't on it, and he felt like I was the one. And I'm like, dude, you're wrong. There is no such list. It's just your time is come and gone.
If it's not a hit, it's not a hit.
And
the marketplace will tell me if I need to play your shit.
Yeah, exactly.
The market will tell me. Yeah.
But he was livid, and I was looking down and I'm like, wow, you're a little dude. And his bodyguard was standing to his right, and his bodyguard was looking like I'm waiting for you to step
say
over.
something wrong. Yeah.
And if you know me, I just kind of all right, man, have a good night. Let's turn around, walked away, and he stood there I'm not gonna sit here and have this conversation with you because you don't want to have a conversation. You want to.
Right. You have a interesting relationship with Kanye because I remember. Listen, I remember
with the names.
Well, no. I remember because I wanted to ask you about this. Mm-hmm. There was one of those rants on the Life of Pablo tour when Ye was floating above the crowd, and in one of the rants, I believe he was in Sacramento or San Francisco. He mentioned your name specifically in one of these 30-minute Kanye rants in the middle of his performance. Yeah. Obviously, since then you've seen Kanye. He's obviously I'm not talking about since the current situation he's in. Yeah. But since that specific instance, what do you when you wake up in the morning? Again, you're the most mild-mannered, cool dude, and you see Kanye just went on a rant and mentions my name. What do you Do you give a fuck or?
No, it doesn't pay my rent. I really didn't give a shit. My mom was excited. My family was excited. I got hit up around the country about it. But, no, I don't even know what led to that because at that time we actually had a really good relationship, and I would go and listen to his album. Usually would grab Big and go with him, listen to Big Boy and go listen to his album. And so, but maybe he wasn't getting the feedback from me at the time because things had started to change from him in the marketplace. But I don't even know what caused the rant. But yeah, I thought it was funny. So
how long has DJ Khaled called you Doc Winters and not Doc Winter? Doc Winters.
To the point where I actually thought about changing my name to Doc Winters since everybody calls me.
It's almost like everyone used to call Joe Budden Joe Buddens. It's like, it's Wynter. It's singular.
I think it's funny, actually. Cal is my guy, man. I love him.
Great guy.
So, yeah, he's hilarious.
Got to stop the interview real quick to tell you about our family at Blue Chew, baby. That's right. It's getting hot outside. You know what that means, fellas? You about to go get that dick wet. You know what I'm saying? It might as well be really hard. It might as well be as hard as it could possibly be. And with Blue Chew, you will achieve such hardness, all right? It's seriously amazing. And the best part about Blue Chew is you can find out if it works. Don't just take my word for it. They're going to give you a month's supply for free. Go to bluechew.com, use that promo code BOOTLEG, get a month's supply for free. Bluechew.com, promo code BOOTLEG. Now, it's the same active ingredient as Viagra and Cialis, minus the awkward doctor appointment. You do not have to go see some old dude and tell him about your erectile dysfunction issues in person, because that's a fucking awkward conversation, bruh. All you got to do is go to bluechew.com right now, use the promo code BOOTLEG. They're going to get you hooked up with a month of supply for free. You just got to pay $5 in shipping. No awkward doctor's appointments. Same active ingredient as Viagra and Cialis. Plus, they got the Blue Chew Mint. It's a chewable. It's great. Tastes like mint. It's also the same active ingredient as Levitra. So, summertime's coming, fellas. You don't want to underperform. Make sure your dick is rocked up, baby, all right? Go to bluechew.com. Use the promo code BOOTLEG. Hey, man, it works. What do you want from me? It fucking works. Everyone should have a little Blue Chew in case of an emergency. You might have an emergency. You need to pop a Blue Chew. Chew it. It's a chewable. You know what I mean? Anyway, also got a shout out to our family at Odd Socks. Don't forget, go to oddsocksofficial.com, promo code BOOTLEG, save 20% off. Man, they got the underwear that they just dropped last year that's amazing. So not only do you get the most comfortable socks in the world, but you can also get the most comfortable drawers in the world, all the crazy licenses. They got half-baked socks. They just announced their Hasbro collection, which is crazy because that means you're going to get Monopoly socks, Transformers socks, Power Ranger socks, so much shit going with Odd Socks. Plus, they got the Odd Socks Basics, my favorite. This is what I wear every day. I wear the Basics because they're the most comfortable socks I've ever put on my fucking feet. So experience the most comfortable socks in the world with me. OddSocksOfficial.com, promo code BOOTLEG. Save 20% off. Shout out to Odd Socks. Let's get back to the interview. So another thing I wanted to talk about, Doc, because I do feel like we are in like a new era of just the music industry. We talked about streaming. We talked about TikTok. Like, what would be your advice? I always tell artists when they ask me, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, but I always tell them to worry about radio last. Because to me, it's like the last peg of like, you know, like if you're I get hit up by guys with 10,000 followers. Yeah. And they're like, yo, man, I'm from the city, put me on Reel, you know, and I'm just don't worry about me yet. Like,
no, I think that's good advice.
Yeah, I always say the radio's the last thing to come. Worry about, you know, developing a following, your fans, you know, getting your shit off the ground, put an album out, something like. But what would be advice you would give in terms of like just an up and coming artist and how they should maneuver around getting on the radio?
Yeah, I think it's no different from back in the day where I think you have to create a story for yourself. Like back in the day, we would say create something locally. Now I would probably say create something socially. You know, get yourself a buzz. I think you got to work on your art. I think because you never know when it's time to press play, and you got to be ready to do business. And I always ask people, like, especially after like, you know, the first year, so how was it? Like, yo, shit's a grind. Like, yeah, it's not fun. Like,
it's work.
It's work. Yeah. It's work. You getting up doing these morning shows, doing these shows, and you trying to party, and then you got to get up and do shows. Like, it's like not everybody's built for it, you know. So that's my advice, and then also handle your business. Yeah. Because you may get 2 albums. You may not. You should have some licensing, some publishing to continue to take care of your family. You may move into a different aspect of the business, but I think you got to start looking at it from that perspective because things can change.
What about your advice for listen, and I tell anybody who asks me that they want to get into the radio industry, for the most part, I say, I don't know, man. Time might have passed. Like, so what if somebody's watching this and their aspirations are to do radio? It's obviously by the day getting tougher and tougher to crack because of just the nature of our business, the economics of our business. What would be your advice to somebody who wants to get into radio?
Man, get yourself a podcast, man. Get yourself a
That's what I tell everybody.
podcast. Work on your craft if an opportunity presents itself. But honestly, man, like there's so few opportunities for really to hone your craft. I think you got to be on the air frequently to do that. Podcast gives you an opportunity to do that. But I mean, only the strong are surviving right now. There's some incredibly talented people like yourself who are out of work.
Yeah.
And then there's some incredibly talented people like yourself who have carved a niche for themselves, and now they're on more than one radio station.
Right.
There's a lot of people outside of radio trying to take multiple jobs, and I get a lot of those meetings. And sometimes I kind of like throw it back at them, like, you do realize that what you're asking me to do is take 25, 30 people's jobs and give it to you.
Right.
And they've never, ever thought about it that way.
Yeah, like you're affecting
like
real people's livelihood.
like honestly, because we really don't have to unless, we needed to. But you're asking me basically to take 30 jobs from people and just give it to you because, you may or may not be more talented, but it's real, And, I take that into consideration. It's not something I take lightly.
Yeah, because I feel like the days of like being on the street team, then getting a weekend shift, those days are like slow. It's because I talk to a lot of programmers, and they're like, "Yo, just the talent pool is kind of, it's kind of shrinking." And
there's a lot of good people out. There's a lot of good radio people. There's not a lot of great radio people.
There's not a lot of great radio people, and I think there's a lot of great, if they are great, on from 3 to 7 or 10 to 3 or whatever. They're not willing to fully embrace what it means in 2023 to be a radio personality anymore. Yeah. And that's what I tell everybody. Like any of these young jocks that will reach out to me, I'm like, you have to. This is this is not a 4-hour a day job.
Oh man.
You gotta be a content creator. You gotta, blogging aside, blog. Because I know that's a big, if you work at a radio station, one of the most annoying things is I got to fucking blog. But like you have to be on your social, you have to build, you're a brand builder.
Oh, man. One of the things that I love about my job, and I say this a lot internally, I have like 3 or 4 morning shows on my team.
Right.
I got Big, I got Cruz, I got your show. And we spent a lot of time early on, I did anyway, explaining the science of PPM and how I thought it would be the best way for you to garner the most ratings from a technical perspective, how you deliver, when you deliver and stuff like that. But in terms of the content, you guys have all handled that.
Yeah.
Like you guys do your job. And
no one has to tell me.
Nobody.
Hey.
Yes.
It's like.
Nor Big, nor Cruz.
Yes.
I have to tell you guys, go get content. 99% of the time I'm finding out, there's the occasion where I'll send you or them a text about something. Oh, yeah, I talked about that 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Like, damn. Like you guys are on it, which makes for great radio. But then you have people who don't have the talent that you guys have, don't have the work ethic that want a job.
I sometimes I'll talk to like, some of my OGs in the radio game. And just the way they talk, I'm just like, this is why you're not employed.
Yeah, man.
Like, they wanted me to TikTok, and I needed to post a certain amount of times a day, and I'm like, listen, man, like, this is the world we live in.
Yeah, man.
Like it just is what it is.
And that's the craziest thing, man. I've had talent on my team that have complained about stuff like that. I'd be like, man, like, I don't get this complaint from Big Boy, so you guys don't understand. Boy, yeah. It's difficult for me to wash down this complaint from you that you've got to. Now, obviously, he's put himself in a position where he's got a team. For sure. Facilitate some of that stuff, but at the end of the day, it gets done. And at some point in his career, he had to do it on his own as well. So it's difficult for me to swallow the fact that you got, you 3-4 years into this and you're already complaining about what you want to do. It's kind of crazy.
Was there ever an artist, Doc, that you almost convinced to be on the radio?
An artist. I did convince Keith Sweat to be on the radio.
Which he still is.
He still is.
So that was you.
That's me. Yeah.
Oh, shout out to you.
There was a time in my career.
Because you were doing the St. Louis Slow Jam show.
I was doing the Slow Jam show, and there was a time in my career where I wanted to be the Slow Jam guy on everybody's station. And my boss at the time, Tom Owens, said, okay, that's interesting. He said, you could be that guy, or you could be the guy that hires that guy. Which guy do you want to be? And I was like, I want to be the guy that hires that guy. And as we began to move into that space where we were looking for somebody to take that position, I always thought of Rob Kelly, and I thought of Keith. Rob was still,
By the way, good decision.
yeah. By the way,
Didn't work out.
Rob was still more relevant at the time with current music. And Keith had actually honestly expressed an interest. It just happened to run into him. And he expressed an interest as I was getting ready to vacate the St. Louis job, and we were getting ready to talk about who was going to be that person. And
it worked out.
Just worked out perfectly.
Because how long has that show been happening?
Man, he's been on it almost 20 years, man.
That shit's crazy.
Yeah, and doing well.
Anybody that you tried to convince, but it didn't, maybe just for whatever reason. I've heard some wild names about I've heard some names, not that necessarily you were involved with, but.
I had a comedian one time who I thought was hilarious that I really thought could do it. And he was supposed to meet me in a market. I think it was Philadelphia. He was supposed to meet me in.
Kevin Hart?
No.
Oh, you said Philly. Yeah.
And we were supposed to create an audition tape for him so that I could submit it to our syndication company and talk about it. And when the day came, he never showed up. And
No showed.
And let's say this was 2009. 2019, I'm coming into our station here in Burbank, walk right into him in a lobby.
Do an interview.
Doing an interview with Big, and didn't remember him. I was like, I don't know if you remember me, but Doc from iHeart, you and I talked one time about syndication, and
You no showed me.
and you never showed. He's like, me? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, what's your name again? And I was just like, are you serious right now? And then, we exchanged numbers, and then he hit me up later. He's like, man, I apologize if, that ever happened. He's like, I was doing a lot of wild shit at that time. Could have just slipped my mind. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, what about now? I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. I don't think we ought to go back down that road again.
I was going to say, for you, you're friends with a guy like Nick, right? Nick ends up doing mornings for a short period of time across the street. He was also on Moving to New York, which I'm sure was against iHeart at a certain point in time. But what is it like to compete against friends?
I've had blunt conversations with Nick about radio. I think he's a phenomenal television host and everything. And as an artist as well. As an artist, I've had conversations with him too. It's business, man.
Because I'm sure throughout your career that's happened numerous times.
It's happened a few times. And people have different. Like Nick's a great guy.
He's the best.
Gentleman, always cool. And we had conversations before and after. And I just always thought it was going to be a tall order to go up against Big. Big is a
in LA and be Nick Cannon, who's obviously got a million other things on your plate, and you're not going to be able to give the full bandwidth to the show that it probably would need if you had a chance. Yeah,
Nick is just so talented, man. It's crazy, but they went on. It did what it did, but again, it was hard to encroach into Big space.
I like what he's doing now on AMP.
Yeah.
What was the biggest record you were just wrong about? That you just didn't like it, or you didn't think it was a hit, but it ended up being crazy?
Biggest record I was wrong about. I don't miss too many records, honestly.
Really?
No, I don't. Now it's as time has gone on, I really rely a lot upon AO and Amen.
You were very good at that. Because we talked about the random white dudes running rhythmic stations.
Yeah.
And they don't have, they just read the chart.
Yeah.
And they don't have like a brain around them. Like, hey, and the other thing I'll say about you, Doc, is I always tell everybody this when they ask about you. I'm like, man, Doc is if a mixtape comes out, an album comes out, the night it's out, he'll text me, yo, what do you think about track 9? I think 9's the best one, or, whatever. And that's not, it's your job, but I just don't think a lot of program directors are.
That's my job, and my guys, my team, like AO, who's in Miami now. It'll be 9 o'clock. here and I'm listening to the music, and he's in Miami. It's 12 o'clock. He's listening to the music, and Amen is in the Bay, and we're sending each other notes about what song we want you to play at 7 o'clock at night. Like, we're passionate about what
it'd be like if a Drake album gets, like, I think the last time a surprise Drake album dropped, we were all on group chat. Like, which one? Which one?
Yeah,
what's the single?
Play? Yeah. So, no, I mean, I like to stay tapped in. Man, that's a good question. Like, I've been doing it so long. Like, usually when I hear the hits, I hear the hits. Not too many that I've missed.
I feel like nowadays, I feel like there's more and more songs that I'll hear, and I'll be like, because I TikTok is such a weird tool.
Yeah.
And nowadays we have a lot of songs like there's songs throughout the years that just recently where there's just been no hook. Mm-hmm. You'd be like, where's the hook? It didn't matter.
Yeah, those are hard records to
pinpoint. Yeah.
But you did say something earlier when you mentioned Fetty Wap. I remember having some conversations with Lior around that time, because we're a format like any other brand. Like, you need stars. Mm-hmm. Like, and I thought he was a star.
He was a star.
And I thought the first album was amazing.
2014, 2015, when he went on tour with Chris Brown, as many people showed up to see him.
The album was crazy. And then as they started moving on to the next project, I honestly thought that there were still better songs on the first project. I remember, getting a record and listening to it, and Lior and I got into kind of a heated discussion.
Was that the song with no hook?
Yeah, I think it was about school or something like that.
No, there was a song that you and I listened to in the office, and there was no hook. It was like he was trying to do a Dreams and Nightmares thing.
It was something different, yeah. And I remember Leo like, you got to give an artist a chance to grow with it. I'm like, yeah, but it's got to be a hit.
Yeah.
And like, he needs a hit. Like, I need him. I need him, because he was the face of our format in some respects for that year. And now you look up and it's 2023, and it's
he's about to go get locked up.
He's gone, and it's just like the NBA. You got to have a face. You have to have faces. Right now, it's Drake. It's The Weeknd. It's Kendrick. It's Rihanna. Cardi. We need more faces. Like, we can't look up 5 years from now and it's still those guys. We got to have some more faces, just like the NBA needs new faces when LeBron and Steph go away. I mean, it's important. So
you have a great relationship with the guys at XO and The Weeknd. Yeah. What is it like hanging out with somebody who is so, to the fans, kind of mysterious and not out there? Like, The Weeknd is somebody who, if you're around him, he's just a normal guy, but he's definitely not that if you just consume his content. He's a very mysterious guy, and I think he's probably going to get out of that soon with the show coming out and all that.
Yeah.
But
he's a really nice dude, man.
Yeah.
Like, just really impressed with his character, as I am with J. Cole. Like,
Cole's the best.
Character, man. Like, as famous as they are, you kind of like watch them from afar, and you're like, that's a good dude, man. Gives people their attention. You can only imagine that he's getting pulled in several directions. I've seen Abel at, family functions, with the XO team. Like, wow, he's here. And he's engaged. It's not, I mean engaged in terms of he's engaging in conversation. He's not on his phone.
Right.
Saying, I'll look up and he's playing with my son. And
right.
I mean, that to me is what really sets them apart. Like, they're just good human beings, man. I enjoy being in their company.
100%. Yeah. The one thing I want to kind of break down is the science on why the number one complaint I've been getting from listeners, and you've been getting from listeners your whole career. Mm-hmm. Why is it every time I hear the fucking radio, it's the same fucking 10 songs? Now, there is a science to this, but I'm sure that's been the feedback for however many years. You guys play the same shit. Yeah. Break down from Doc Wynter the science of why a radio playlist is very tight and why you might hear 5 or 6 songs over and over again if you listen all day driving an Uber or something.
I like to use the analogy of a nightclub. Our job is to retain listeners, right? Let's say if you were at a nightclub and the DJ decided he wanted to go off on a rant and play, 30 minutes of Frank Sinatra or whatever.
Clear the dance floor.
Clear the dance floor. They'd probably stay and wait until he came back to his senses. Doesn't happen in radio.
They go find the other.
They go they may not come back. I've actually been in a car, and not in the case of playing bad music, but a very long commercial break, and saw this Uber driver listening to us, go to the competition. Obviously, he preferred us. Come back, we were still playing commercials, and I could see his anger. Like, damn. I'm gonna go back there instead because, and what retains them is a record that they like, that they can sing, not necessarily something they've never heard.
Right. I think so. I always tell people it's like the average radio listener is how many minutes a day?
Might be 10, 15 minutes.
So if you think about it through that lens, we talked about PPM. The meters are like people get paid to wear these little pagers, and it tracks their real time listening. So it's like you're hoping to play something to keep somebody around in that 10-minute window that they happen to listen.
Yep.
So the research and data on how you come up with what the 5 powers are, what all goes into that?
Probably the most important thing is who you're going to ask. Do you like this record? Who's your screen is what they call. It might be 18 to 34-year-old women. It could be 18 to 34-year-old men. It could be 18 to 34-year-old Black women, 18 to 34-year-old Latino women.
And as a programmer, you got to know what you're targeting.
You got to know what moves the needle in your market.
For your demo.
18 to 34 Latino females who listen to radio 3 hours. You can get that granular with it. And then you begin to understand, what moves the needle for them. The more you listen to, the more you do research, and the more you ask the right questions, you get a sense of, okay, like this is what moves the needle for them. And then you give people what they want to keep coming back. You ever go to a restaurant and all of a sudden they tell you, we stopped making your favorite meal?
It just happened to me.
Making my favorite meal. Wow. Yeah, we got bored with it.
It just happened.
Come on, man. Yeah, so... that's the science, and again, it can be frustrating for people, but again,
and there's a bunch of factors, right? You'll have like call out, which is where you're pretty much kind of how would you describe call out for a radio station?
You call out to people that fit the screen, and you play hooks of songs. You ask,
what do you think of this song? What do you think of this song?
Yeah,
you'll see streaming data for the market.
Yep.
You check Shazam.
So,
and then. There's also the M scores, which is that something you guys, you obviously M scores is like.
I look at it, but somebody could have turned a song off. You don't really know what the reason is, and that's what the switching score is. Someone turned off the song, or a number of people turned off the song while it was playing. And sometimes you can look at the song and say, okay, you see other factors that contribute to, it might be the wrong time of day you played the song. You might just be tired of it.
Right.
Rest it and then test it again is what we like to say. But
where do you see not only just radio, obviously radio, but just music going in the next 5 years or so, Doc? Because it's forever evolving. Everything is changing.
We've been talking about this R&B thing for the last 2 or 3 years.
It's coming back.
It's coming back. I know we're getting a lot of R&B records that our audience is really enjoying here in LA. There's Latin trap that I think it has been around for a number of years, that it's making a compelling case to be a part of our arsenal on the radio. Man, we're looking for hits, man. You talk to a lot of people right now, they think that this is amongst the worst cycles that we've had in a long time.
In terms of people making records?
Records, yeah.
I feel like most of the female artists are the ones who are providing like real records.
Hits, yeah.
Like I'm thinking Cardi, even Coi Leray, Glorilla. It's like, like, I don't know what it is about that either. Because like,
I think times are different. When you think about curating artists back in the 90s, it was pre-streaming. And so if you decided to take this leap of faith and someone thought that you were, you had the talent, you went for it, because going for it means that you were going to sell a lot of records, you were going to go on tour, and you're going to make a lot of money. Now, here's this streaming thing.
Right, just keep throwing shots out.
You just keep throwing shots out, and you can make a lot of money. And
yeah, what's my incentive to make an
incentive to be great? What's
my
incentive to be great when I can take care of my family because I'm making money, putting out a lot of music, unfortunately.
You've obviously had to fire a lot of people in your career.
I've had to part ways with people. I like to put it that way.
What is the craziest reason you've had to part ways with an employee? Without saying who they are, obviously.
Wow. I've had a couple of hygiene issues.
Really?
Yeah.
So someone stank. They smelled bad.
Yeah.
What's that conversation like? Like, hey, look, you're.
No, I think that brother was just in. And I have to think about it. That brother at that time, he was just. I think he'd gotten a divorce, and
He was just having a rough time.
He gotten divorced, and he was living in a hotel, and but it was making the working experience unbearable because he wasn't showering. Man, who else? I've had so many crazy experiences that just beyond. And one of the craziest was I'm in Jacksonville, and a buddy of mine had a friend that listened to the radio station, and she wanted to meet with me about some type of charity event that the radio station was going to support. And at the time, I was doing afternoons in Jacksonville, Slow Jam show in St. Louis, and I was overseeing whatever urbans we had at the time. I think it might have been 5 or 6 before I got to the 80 that I do now, but it was like 5 or so. And I remember her coming in my office. I'm in the office, and I'm kind of like not really paying attention. I'm like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. Why don't you leave something with my assistant? And then she said, okay, and one other thing. And she gets up and she locks my door, and she starts to disrobe. And I just remember saying, yo, what are you doing? And my face and my eyes lock with her eyes, and she realized that, and then she just started crying.
Ooh.
And so I sat her down in my chair, and I was like, yo, like what are you doing? Like, was this like your plan? Like this was your
Did
you think this through at all? Like, I just, and I was like, yo, I'm flattered, but like, this is not going down like this, man. And I feel bad that you feel like you want to sit here and compose yourself, because right now I'm starting to think like, okay, so what can happen right now?
Yeah, you're
I got
crying
a crying
now.
woman in my office,
Right.
and so I went and got my assistant, gave her some tissue, told her to sit here for a while. And, when you're ready to go. I got to go do my show, but
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was kind of nutty, man.
Have you ever had someone in your Jacksonville days fly to Jacksonville to see you face to face to be like, yo, what the fuck? Why is this song not getting played? I feel like, listen, I don't want to keep saying Diddy. I feel like Diddy's the kind of guy who might like just show up to the office one day. I could be wrong.
No, he's not that kind of guy. Like,
He's not.
Like, I mean, he'll text me about a record,
Right.
But again, I think I don't emote that, so I don't really get that back.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say something crazy to Diddy. He's not gonna say something crazy to me. And every once in a while, when I do get that kind of response, I'm not that guy. I'm just like, okay, cool, I'm out.
We did Real Street Fest in 2019 or 18. What year did we do Real Street Fest?
We did it in 19. Yeah, pandemic was in 20. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a great time. I know we always talk about, you and I, like the radio show's kind of dying. Like obviously, iHeart has the Jingle Ball tour. They have all these things that are very like top 40 friendly. Even there, shout out to the iHeart Festival that we do in Vegas every year. Can you foresee, or I know it's something that you want to do, but an urban hip hop version nationally of some sort of show or festival?
I mean, I hope so. I've thought about it for years, but every year some dynamic changes.
Right.
Went from the radio show to us realizing we need to do festivals, and we put together this great event.
It was amazing, and then the pandemic happened.
And the pandemic kicks in, and then now we are in the middle of a financial crisis, and it's hard for you to go to your company and say, "Hey, give me these millions of dollars
to throw an event
that may not make the money back." And so you instead you start partnerships with people who do that for a living and say, "Hey,
how can we do this together?
How can we do this together? Give me a bunch of tickets to give away." And that's kind of what happened with Dre in the Super Bowl. Dr. Dre,
which was crazy.
He and Big have a great relationship. Gave us tickets to sit in his suite in the Super Bowl for us to give away.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
and then obviously the Drake tours come in.
The Drake tour. Remember
some of these mega festivals.
Yeah, the Kanye and Drake show that we gave away right before
the
pandemic.
Did you go to that?
Oh yeah,
I was in DR with my wife for our anniversary.
Yeah,
watched it on Amazon.
Yeah.
It was
it was nutty. Yeah,
it was legendary. Do you see yourself ever leaving radio?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I've been doing it for 34 years. Is my anniversary in January. So at some point,
because I could see at some point, you know, Apple coming and being like, "Hey, Doc."
I mean, I get approached to be on boards right now, which are of interest to me.
Wow.
Because you get an opportunity to play in a different pond that you don't normally play with, but also, you know, use the relationships you've established over years to, you know, to make some headway. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I try to stay in shape and I love what I do.
You are the definition of black don't crack.
I try to stay in shape and I got a young son who's
he's young and he's hooping.
He's a hockey player.
Oh, he's playing hockey.
He's a black hockey player.
Hey, there's a few of those.
And he's 4. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I want to spend more time with him.
Yeah, you called and yelled at us while your wife was in labor.
Oh man, that was the craziest thing ever. I don't know why I answered the phone. But you guys kept calling.
We did the celebrity smash thing. Yeah. I was like, I'd be damned if we let this shit fly over these airwaves before we get the green light with Doc Wynter.
So I'm in the hospital holding one of my wife's legs as my son is coming out, and the nurse is holding the other leg. And he's got, you know, my phone. I'm just like, yo, it's got to be an emergency. Why you guys keep calling? So I answered the phone, and the nurse looks at me like, "Are you fucking kidding me right now?"
And your wife's screaming in the background.
Yes.
And me and Head for sure assumed you guys were having sex at the time. So I was like, "Yo, Doc just answered the phone while he's piping his lady." And then we realized, there was a baby being had.
My son's crown was out at the time. You guys are calling. I was like. My wife's like, yo, you answer the phone while my son is coming out of me? I was like, yo, it's important.
Before you go, what are your top 5 favorite albums of all time? Off the top of your head, without thinking about it.
Top 5 favorite albums in music.
In music. I'll give you you don't have to say hip hop.
Definitely Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Okay.
It was groundbreaking. Keith Sweat's first album. Make It Last Forever.
Okay.
Notorious B.I.G.
Which one? Ready to Die or Life After Death?
Ready to Die.
Okay.
Damn, I actually posted these one time on my Instagram. Dang, who was the other one? Who was the album? And when I talk about an album, I mean I'm just playing every track on the album
course.
Because it's that good, and I've been around for a long time, so it's hard to knock down 5. I do remember Jay's first album.
Reasonable Doubt.
Reasonable Doubt was
incredible.
Incredible. I remember Tiffany Green saying, there's this guy from New York, he's going to be the greatest rapper ever. And I was like,
really?
It's a big thing to say. No, she's like, no, he's a guy. And like, she was right.
She was right.
You know? I don't know, man.
Anything more recently that you just can remember just liking? Like, yo, this is just a body of work that...
I would be remiss if I didn't say I just think that Drake is remarkable, man. And it's an interesting conversation because, you know, we're about to celebrate the 50th anniversary of hip-hop.
Yep.
I happened to be around New York City at the time when it was bubbling up. In most instances, New Yorkers claimed everything. The best basketball.
Right. But you could claim hip-hop and it'd be factual.
Claim hip-hop and factual. I remember playing ball and thinking that we were the only guys that could do it, and coming to Vegas and playing in a tournament.
Yeah, like pizza, basketball, those are all debatable. Hip-hop, there's no debate.
You know, playing against Byron Scott and like, we went back home like, these dudes from LA can play ball, you know. But so the purist will definitely find it difficult to accept the fact that a dude from from Canada might be
The GOAT.
the GOAT.
Yeah.
But when you think about body of work, as long as I've been in this business, to have a body of work from a radio perspective where we research music,
Yeah, from our perspective, from the radio side, there's nobody who's ever been close.
it's the most insane thing that you've ever seen. Like,
He's the most prolific hit maker we've ever seen.
It's literally, when you sort the list by artist, it's just literally his songs and his name, and then the score on the right is through the roof, and you're just like, I've never seen anybody do anything like that.
Who's second in that list? Because if you were to pull up like titles in the library, who would be the second person? Is it like Wayne? Is it T-Pain? I mean, I don't know. You know, like
Man, there's not a lot of people that have like.
nobody has the Drake list.
You might, maybe Wayne. That's a really good question. Maybe it's Wayne, but it's not only that the list is long. It's just that
The quality, the research.
the quality.
Yeah.
It's the research.
Yeah.
Like he might be able to do a show with these 20 songs this night and another 20 songs another
He could
night.
do a show with all the features.
And another, and who could do that?
I'll give you that. Nobody could do that.
But again, I honestly remember when I put Real on in L.A., there's an artist who, again, I won't name, but he told me, like, they don't like his music here. And I was just like, huh? He's like, no, like, it's West Coast. We don't like that. I'm like, dude, like, you're really wrong. Like,
Yeah, there's not a place where people don't like Drake's music.
yeah. Like, this guy could sell out, crypto for 4 or 5 nights. Like, they like him. Yeah.
For you coming to LA, I was on the radio when Damn dropped, and there was just that moment when Kendrick dropped Damn. Those songs would not go away.
Yeah.
Like Love and obviously Hump, but there was just songs that were in power rotation for like 2 years.
Yeah, that was a great album.
It was just wild to like. I just remember being like, "Fuck, man! Like I love this album, but I fucking hate it because all I do is play these fucking songs all day."
I love the fact that it was at a time when you just put a station on in L.A. and it was a guy from L.A., a brother at that, who had a management team around him that were brothers, and so, I mean, it was just perfect timing for us. A lot of things like that fell into our lap. You remember our first show in L.A. that we did Real Show 2015. We had Kendrick was the headliner. We had Future. He and Drake had just done a show, and we get a call Sunday morning. He's
Drake
pulling
came
up.
out, right?
He's
Yeah.
pulling up.
I wasn't there yet,
And,
but I remember seeing it.
Never felt anything like that in an arena in my life. When he stepped out on that stage, I actually have a picture in my office.
Yeah, yep, you got it.
The craziest momentum I've ever seen, and I was like, man, like, we gonna be here.
I even think I think the first real show I might have been a part of was J. Cole headlining and Cardi B was on the show, but this was like, I mean, Cardi had records, but it wasn't like
First album, way early. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know if the first album was out very long.
No, it hadn't been out long. No. I'm not saying that. She only had one album, right? So,
Yeah, but
this is
I
early.
remember being in the dressing room and like seeing them two talk.
Yeah. Yep. And I think he was giving her some.
Yeah.
I seen a couple of those. If you remember Real Street Fest, whatchamacallit was on our show. Doja.
Yeah, I interviewed her. It's crazy. I always tell the homies at RCA, I'm like, you guys fucking job so easy. If you work at Republic RCA, good fucking luck. You don't have to work your records much. Hey, I have a new Drake song. It's added. I have a new Weeknd song. It's added.
Hey, man, when we added Doja to that show, let's say our show was in August, and we added her like maybe in May.
She was not.
She was not the same person. By the time
The
we
Tiger
did our
remix
show,
wasn't out yet?
By the next year,
Yeah, it's gone.
It went from who is this person to, yeah, man. Those are the stories that I love, because you got to think that radio has something to do with that.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Well, look, Doc, I appreciate you. You guys can go follow Doc if you want to follow him. You're not like a big social media guy.
No, really.
Doc Wynter.
Doc Winners.
Anything else on the way? Signing on more radio stations? Obviously, I know that iHeart's kind of going through the financial shit right now, but like, you've weathered a million storms in that sense. But like anything coming that you're excited about, or you just
Cultivating our Living Black this year. That'll be in August.
Okay.
And basically paying homage to hip hop's 50th anniversary. Like, dude, I was back there in the 70s. Like,
Right.
you couldn't tell me, as amazing as it was, that
it would be
we'd
here.
Celebrating this thing 50
years later.
And it would mean what it meant to our community. It gave
Right.
people, like, gave brothers, there are brothers that are millionaires, a number of them from it. It's amazing.
Did you ever have any Biggie or Tupac moments?
Tupac, interviewed Tupac in LA after Jason's Lyric or Poetic Justice?
Poetic Justice with
For the Poetic
Janet.
Justice movie. Was he clearly had been out the night before, still smelled like alcohol, but he was so well spoken. And then after the interview, I remember I was flying back to St. Louis, and my lady, who was my first wife, was sitting in the lobby reading a book, and he saw her, and he took off running towards her, and his boy like tackled him and pulled him to the side, and he started laughing, and she was oblivious to it. I always remember, it's like, damn, what would happen if he had gotten to her? Like, it was gonna be a problem.
She might have been your former wife a lot earlier.
Could have been. But nah, man. So thank you for doing this.
Of course, Doc. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate it.
Hey, we got to wrap up an interview brought to you by Hardin Las Vegas. Appreciate y'all watching. Hey, don't forget, when you go to Vegas, you got to go to Hardin, man. It's the craziest dispensary you'll ever walk into. It smells like fucking heaven in there. All right? Get in that Uber when you hit Sin City. Tell them, take me to Hardin. They're going to take you. You're going to get a wild selection of the just top of the line cannabis. The best selection you'll go be able to see in the U.S. Plus, on top of that, they got the crazy gear. They got the clothes, they got the bikinis, they got a wonderful selection of bud tenders that are very good at their job, man. They'll take care of you. Tell them that Bootleg Kev sent you. The bud tenders of Hardin, they'll know what that means. They're going to get you hooked up right. All right, go follow them online, Hardin_Las Vegas, or just go check out their website too, man, HardinLasVegas.com. And when you're in Vegas, pull up to Hardin or you're playing yourself, for real.